Timidandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Can I share my screen, please? Okay, great. Thank you. Just the verse. All right. So this is a significant place in the Bhagavatam because we're just beginning with text 14, the prayers of the personified Vedas. So it goes, Sri Shutaya Uchu, Jaya Jaya Jam Ajita Dosha Gripita Gunam, Tvam Asi Tad Yad Atmana Samavarudha Samastapaga Paga Agad Okasham Akila Shakt Yapabodkate Kvachit Ajaya Mana Cha Charaton Charanen Vikama. So Sri Shutaya Uvacha means the Vedas said. So these are the Upanishads speaking to us. And then Jaya Jaya, twice. Victory to you, victory to you. Jahi means please defeat. Ajam, the eternal illusory potency of Maya. And there's that word, eternal illusory potency of Maya. So please defeat that. Ajita, and that's an important word here, because you are unconquerable. Dosha, to create discrepancies. Gribhita, who has assumed gunam, the qualities of matter. So you can defeat, you're not defeated by the three modes of material nature, tvam you. Asi means are, yat means because, atmana, in your original status. Samar varudha means complete, sama like everything, sama all. Samasta, in all, bhaga, opulences. Aga means non-moving, jagat means moving. So for everybody, the moving and non-moving, you bewilder everyone. Okas, some of those who possess material bodies. So everyone who has a material body. Ajaya, with your material energy. Atmana, with your internal spiritual energy. Cha also. Charata means engaging. Anucharet means can appreciate, and Nigama means the Vedas. So the Shrutis said, victory, victory to you, O unconquerable one. By your very nature, you are perfectly full in all opulences. By your very nature, you're full of all opulences. Therefore, please defeat the eternal power of illusion, who assumes control over the modes of material nature to create difficulties for conditioned souls. O you who awaken all the energies of the moving and non-moving embodied beings, sometimes the Vedas can recognize you as you sport with your material and spiritual potencies. And we'll read part of the purport and then say something and continue like that because it's a little bit long. So according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the 28 verses of the prayers of the personified Vedas, text 14 to 41, represents the opinions of each of the 28 major Shrutis. These chief Upanishads and other Shrutis concern themselves with various approaches to the absolute truth. And among them, those Shrutis are supreme, which emphasize pure, unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, for example, we know one of them well, of the ones, so of all the Shrutis, because a lot of the Shrutis are kind of more Gyan, But the one that we know, of course, that is Bhakti is the one that Prabhupada, translated for us very early, Sri Ishopanishad. The Upanishads direct our attention to the personality of Godhead by first negating what is distinct from him. So a lot of them are saying, no, it's not this, you're not this body, the material world's a place, etc. Negating what is distinct from him and then defining some of his important characteristics. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti interprets the first words of this prayer, Jaya Jaya, to mean, please reveal your super excellence. The word Jaya is repeated out of either reverence or joy. So that's just a small point here that we'll make, but it's if as we read, and of course we get often quoted in the 11th and 12th cantos and part of the 10th canto, from chapter 14 onwards, Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu and Hridayananda Maharaj will directly quote the previous acharyas. Prabhupada often naturally just mixed them in his commentary. And so we see sometimes that, not sometimes, a lot of times, that acharyas will have different transcendental takes on something. And even here it's saying Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, well, it could mean this, and it also couldn't mean this. But in this, for example, in this case, both are wonderful. And that's just kind of the nature. Sometimes we're used to seeing, it's either black or it's white. It's either right or it's either or wrong. But lots of times two things can be right. Right? Either reverence or joy. It says the word Jaya is repeated either out of reverence or out of joy. And they're both wonderful, though we may prefer the joy one. But both are there. And well, I should go back to the purport, but in my field of conflict resolution, it's often like that. People, devotees or non-devotees, they're looking at something and they're looking at it from different points of view. And from their point of view, it can be right. They both can be right, or they both may be wrong in conflict resolution, and it doesn't matter. As I often say, do you want to be happy? Do you want to say, no, the way I see it is right? Or do you want to work this out, this conflict, and both be happy and walk away from this mediation with that conflict in the rear view mirror? That's not the point being made here, though, that great acharyas like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur can say, yes, it can mean either reverence or joy. So continuing. And by the way, if you have any comments or questions, maybe put them in the chat or go off of mute. We can keep this interactive. It doesn't have to be waiting till the very end to have questions. How should I reveal my excellence? The Lord might ask. The Shrutis answer by requesting him to mercifully destroy the ignorance of all living beings and attract them to his lotus feet. That's quite a request. That's kind of a, yeah, that's a, what's the name of Vasudev Datta kind of prayer. Right? Just destroy everyone's ignorance and attract them. So it's a kind of prayer you can imagine Srila Prabhupada saying. He's so compassionate. The Lord says, but Maya, who imposes ignorance on the jivas, is full of good qualities. Gribita gunam. Why should I oppose her? Yes, the Vedas answer, but she has taken on the three modes of nature to bewilder the conditioned souls and make them falsely identify with their material bodies. So all three modes help us falsely identify with the material bodies. The modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, moreover, are tainted, dosha gribita, because you are not manifest in their presence. So we talk about the modes of material nature a lot in our classes, and sometimes we talk about them a bit in the abstract sense, not perhaps applying them as much as we should to our life. So just like right now, if I asked you, and you can put it in the chat if you want, but to diagnose right now, which mode or modes of material nature are you being affected by right now? Now you might say transcendence. You're hearing the Bhagavatam. That may be above the modes, but when or let's say a half hour ago, what mode do you think was primarily affecting you? Mike says all three. Uh, I'm above the modes during class. The whole Bhakti Center says that. Krishna Dvaya says passion. Jamuna Jaya also says passion, rajas. Yeah. It's we Soba says envy, which that's usually ignorance, right? Mm. We are just like, what do they say, that a fish doesn't recognize that they're in water. It's just it's just where they live, right? They're surrounded by water all the time. And Gregory says gratitude. Now that's in goodness, leaning towards transcendence, depending on what we're grateful for. So that's a good one, Gregory. Thank you. Um, it can be helpful not to be the exclusive meditation. Our meditation is hopefully on Krishna, but it can be helpful to be analytical about how the modes of material nature are affecting us at any given time, or as we're walking around the world, as we're walking on First Avenue. Uh, what modes of material nature are we seeing? Because they are all pervasive in the material world. And as we're going to hear in a minute, Krishna is called Ajita. It means unconquerable. And what is he? What is part of his being unconquerable? That he's never conquered by the modes of material nature. And we are easily conquered by the modes of material nature, as are every human being that we run into in the day. It's just they're just everywhere. Three modes of material nature. So they're mentioned in the 14th chapter, the 17th chapter, and the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, briefly in one or two other places, but primarily those three places. So Krishna's, making it clear that they're very important, and they are his way of not directly, but indirectly creating and having the material world continue to exist, to continue to function through the three modes of material nature. And it can be helpful, especially when we're feeling uh, attracted by rajas and tamas, to do something about it. And here, the real way to do something about it for us as devotees is to take shelter of Krishna. Mm. He's the only one, and his great devotees, who is literally not affected by the modes of material nature. Rather, he's the creator of the modes of material nature. So if you have any comments, thoughts, questions about that topic, please put them in chat or go off of mute while we continue. Okay. So the Shrutis go on to address the Lord as Ajita, implying that only you cannot be conquered by Maya, whereas others, like Brahma, are defeated by their own faults. The Lord responds, by what proof do you have that she cannot conquer me? The Vedas say. The proof lies in the fact that in your original state, you have already realized the perfection of all opulences. So he, when we see things like this, that Lord Brahma used as an example, because that's considered extreme. That if Brahma is um, not cannot conquer Maya, then the idea is, well, what to speak of me, right? Now, of course, there's different Brahmas. We could talk about that at another time. And there's different times in his life, and he's of course the head of our sampradaya. Um, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye, that Krishna inspired him in the heart, but still but for our application here, the idea is, well, if even Lord Brahma, whose lifetime of what is it, 311 trillion 640 billion years, um, and it's explained that his intelligence is as vast as his life is long. So then we hear, well, if he could be conquered by Maya, well, what to speak of little Vraj Vihari, little insignificant Vraj. We can easily be conquered by Maya, and therefore we need to take shelter of Krishna. We could talk about shelter in a minute, but I was just checking to see. Whoops, there's no questions or comments so far. Okay. So that's not a easy thing, to uh, Sharanagati, to surrender to Krishna is it's not it sounds easy, uh, but anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati vishvaso gotripte varanam tata atman nishepa karpanye sadvidha Sharanagati. That Sharanagati, imagine if we could uh, constantly, regularly, always accept that which is favorable to bhakti, reject that which is unfavorable. And we say we should always remember Krishna. So always think of Krishna as my maintainer, as my protector. And if we do those things, we'll actually have developed some real, true humility, and then we can fully take shelter of Krishna. So it's uh, it's quite an exalted state here to be. And then really, we do our best to avoid, especially the lower modes of material nature. And we really need to take shelter of Krishna because if we're attracted to him, param dristva nivartate, then we're not attracted to the modes of material nature. And Krishna, and so we can even pray to Krishna for that verse, chapter 2, verse 59 of the Gita, to get a higher taste. Because when we have a higher taste, when we're feeling that connection with the most beautiful, the most loving, the most kind, the most caring Supreme Personality of Godhead, that shelter is the way to be free. Sometimes I think about it. My brother is 6 years older than me. I was going to say growing up. He's still 6 years older than me. It just seems less significant when you're like 8 and he's 14 than when you're 66 and he's 72. And I can remember a couple of times being chased by bullies in the neighborhood and then running to my house and hiding behind my brother, who was a lot bigger than those other 8-year-olds. And then then I was safe. So I often I try to think of that sometimes when I'm being chased by the lower modes of material nature, and then try to take shelter of Krishna, and then he's like the big brother who has the bullies in the neighborhood run away. Okay, continuing. Um, at this point, we're here now. At this point, the Lord might object that merely destroying the ignorance of the jivas will not suffice to bring them to his lotus feet, since the jiva's soul, even after his ignorance is dispelled, cannot attain the Lord without engaging in devotional service. As the Lord states in his own words, Bhaktyaham ekaya graya. I am attainable only through devotional service. And that's this verse here. Tell me if you can't see this verse, let me know. Because I think I can switch on Zoom and you can still see it. So this is from the 11th canto, chapter 14, verse 21, a famous verse. Only by practicing unalloyed devotional service with full faith in me can one attain me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am naturally dear to my devotees, who take me as the only goal of their loving service. By engaging in pure devotional service, even the dog eaters can purify themselves from the contamination of their lower birth. So this, we have to, make sure we completely understand this. It's not by Jnana Yoga, just understanding the distinction between the soul and the body and the nature of this material world. It's not by just karma yoga, just working and then offering the fruits to Krishna. It's not by Varnashrama. Varnashrama is not part of bhakti that's mentioned by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's not by austerities, also mentioned in the same place in the Nectar of Devotion. Those can be used in Krishna's service. We can like Daivi Varnashram, but they're not in and of themselves. It's only by bhakti, bhakti amam abhijananti. Only way that we actually get free from those swimming constantly in the modes of material nature. The only way is through bhakti. It's the only way. It's the only thing that is. These other things, these other processes that I mentioned are not strong enough, especially in Kali Yuga. They're not strong enough to get us to perfection. The only thing that's strong is bhakti. Okay, so I still don't see any questions or comments, but please go off of mute or put it in the chat. Okay, and then we go back to this. All right, to this objection, the Shruti's reply. Oh, did somebody go off of mute?
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
I hear you barely, Prabhu.
Glad to hear you.
Give it a little louder.
Yeah. It's not going to stretch the cable. Say that again?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, you're making a wonderful point. And we were just reading last night, Srila Prabhupada said, the real knowledge is to be convinced and fully confident that just by engaging in devotional service, everything else is accomplished. Oh, you're just thinking about, uprooting anarthas and meditating. They have this process called psychoanalysis where the therapist lets you tell about all the weird, dark things you've gotten, bad habits and everything, but just delving into the toilet is not going to help us that much, so that's what emphatically making that point. Just engage in devotional service. Everything. When you have $1 million, all your $10 problems are solved. So that's why it's so important that we have spiritual master, because the guru is giving us, when we say, how can I serve you? Just like Arjuna finally said, you know what? I get it. What do you want me to do? When we get to that point and we approach guru and say, how can I serve you? Sometimes he'll say, well, figure out something you can do to push on Lord Chaitanya. He gives you the responsibility. But very often we'll have that Kurukshetra moment.
Hey, Kurukshetra. I like that Kurukshetra moment. Beautiful.
Okay.
I haven't heard that before.
Okay, here is your Prabhupada Desh. This is where I want you to go. Like Tamal Krishna Maharaj was telling us that Prabhupada told him to go to Red China, or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj told Prabhupada, go to the West, to the English speaking, so you get your Prabhupada Desh. Where are you going to do? You get your prescribed duty. Arjuna was saying, well, this is great, the spiritual life. Yeah, I'm just going to go to the forest. Chris said, I'm not asking you to go to the forest. I'm asking you to fight on the battlefield, So we have our prescribed duty and we have the place to, and another one, difficult one, is who he wants you to work with. That can be tricky. I work with this person, I don't like, that's our ticket to hell, mental platform. But the relationship with the guru gives us our duty, and then come hell or high water, what does it say? The devotee doesn't care if he goes to heaven or hell. You know, Gopi said, Krishna needs dust on from our feet, on his head. We go to hell, we don't care. That's what he wants, that's what we'll do, you know. So that makes everything else that we could possibly desire, right?
Yeah.
Well, where's the
Yeah.
Prabhupada?
As you're talking, you remind me of that section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita where the young man goes to an astrologer, and the astrologer says, "Your father passed away in a distant place, and he left you a treasure. But if you dig on the south side, the wasps will get you, and I forget the snake will get you if you dig on the north or on the west. But if you just dig a little bit on the east, you'll attain the treasure." And that the east representing bhakti. As for other things, like you were saying, there may be just like Prabhupada writes in the first canto, that the mental diseases in Kali Yuga are worse than the physical diseases. So if there's something that's blocking us from, like a mental health issue, we may go to a mental health professional to that can help us. But we don't want to, the key here, and we've seen this, of course, over the years, is we sometimes may think, well, that mental health process is the real savior. Well, no, it's Krishna, and it's the process of bhakti. And there sometimes can be things that can be anukul, that can be favorable. And so not to confuse the something that frees us in order to perform bhakti with bhakti itself. Anything else? Anyone else like to add?
Come.
Okay, well, then we'll continue with this long
Yeah.
part. What was somebody in the class? Yes, in the class.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I wanted to mention that sometimes we come across people who are doing mental health work, and
Yeah.
discovered that there was one particular person, and the end goal or the end result of all his therapy was that you would feel one with everything around you and disappear into everything else. So that really helped me decide what I wanted to do. And I thought I just mentioned that you can choose by the end goal or the end result, whether it's something you want to go into, or that's
Yeah, the challenge is if you can only judge by the end result, then how do you decide to begin or not? But uh, but yeah, well, to become one with everything, that all depends on what that ultimately means, because ultimately, um, we don't want to become one with Krishna. We want to serve Krishna as his servant. But I see your point. And also there's a statement in the Vedas, pralena parichiyate, that you can judge something by its result, as you're saying. Yes. Um, and so that's a valid point. Uh, what I was trying to say is kind of not a really a subtle point, but just a simple point that there are things in this world that may be helpful. Just like if you break your arm, you go get your arm broken, and if you have some mental health issue, you can try to get that cleared up. Um, but um, we should not confuse the ultimate cure-all, as we were just hearing from Prabhuji, of bhakti, of devotion to God, with the band-aids of other things, which may be helpful. Band-aids can be helpful, right? If my finger starts bleeding, I really, first thing I do is ask my wife, where are the band-aids? So that they can be helpful, but just don't confuse them with the ultimate. Is that all right? Okay. Thank you. Yes. Okay, let us sally forth. To this objection, did I read that? No. The Shrutis say, "My Lord, O you who awaken all energies, after creating the intelligence and senses of the living entities, you inspire them to work hard and enjoy the fruits of their labor." I think if you just look out the window right now, if you're in the temple, you can see people working hard to try to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Prabhupada would often see like that. In addition, by your mercy, you awaken their ability to pursue the progressive paths of knowledge, mystic yoga, and devotional service, allowing them to advance towards you in your aspects of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, respectively. And when Gyan, Yoga, and Bhakti mature, you empower the living beings to directly realize you in each of your three aspects. And so here, there's, we say that there's 1.5 most important verses in the Bhagavatam, and the one that is related to what we just read now is Vedanti tat vidas tattvam yaj jnanam avyam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti sabhyate. That there are these three aspects of realizing the absolute truth. And of course, it goes on to say that Bhagavan is the other half, most important, ete chaksakala pungsam. Krishna's two, Bhagavam Swayam. That Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here we're getting that kind of referring to that. If the Lord were to ask for authoritative evidence to support this statement by the personified Vedas, they humbly reply, "We ourselves are the evidence. On some occasions, such as now, the time of creation, you consort with your external Maya potency, whereas you are always present with your internal energy. It is at times such as the present, when your activity is outwardly manifest, that we, the Vedas, can recognize you in your play. Thus endowed, with authority by their personal association with the Supreme Lord, the Shrutis promulgate the process of karma, gyan, yoga, and bhakti as various means for the conditioned souls to employ their intelligence, senses, mind, and vitality in the search of the absolute truth. In many places, the Vedas glorify the transcendental personal qualities of the Supreme. The following verse appears in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, the Gopalatapani Upanishad, and the Brahma Upanishad. And I'll just read the English. The one Supreme Lord lives hidden inside all created things. So who's that? That's the Super Soul, right? He pervades all matter and sits within the hearts of all living beings. As the indwelling Super Soul, he supervises their material activities. Thus, while having no material qualities himself, he is the unique witness and giver of consciousness. And I'll speak for myself, and I wonder if you feel similarly. I do feel that my activities throughout the day and through my life are somehow or other judged. But I don't know how often I actually think that right here, right next to me, the soul is Krishna in the form of the Super Soul. And what to speak of when I see a tree, or I see a blade of grass, or I see another human being, that I don't just see that body that they have, but I understand that they're a soul and they're accompanied by Super Soul. I mean, what a meditation that would be as you walk downstairs in the Bhakti Center and go outside on the street and meditate in that way. Jeffrey, you have your hand up.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for speaking on this verse. And I have a question, and I think that you'll probably be aware of this kind of overarching argument that we often see about kind of God the narcissist. If we are inspired to participate in the material world and seek out the fruits of our labor, and then subsequently inspired to pursue a path of enlightenment, transcendence, etc., and this is all part of God's play, then is God not really kind of messing with us? And how do we understand that?
Is God not? Well, where do you get that this is all part of God's play?
Well, in the verse there, in the purport, it said that the Vedas recognize this as part of your play,
Uh,
and so if we understand that God is omnipotent and has put all of this kind of together, and understands what has and what will happen, then is God not just kind of watching as we struggle? And so how do we within the framework of Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara understand that God is not just sitting back and watching us struggle when
or
he could,
letting
when
us,
it could intervene at any moment and change literally everything.
right? Well, a couple of things come to my mind, and I'll be happy if other Vaishnavas chime in here. The example that Prabhupada would give, and I think it's also in the Shastra, uh, uh, of the father who has a wayward son, but is always hankering for the time when the child will, come back and um, again reestablish his relationship with his father, and then the father will, give him his business and take, whatever, will be so overjoyed. But but at the same time, the father, especially when the child is, of mature age, um, can't force the father can't force a child to come back and take shelter, and but rather the child has to want to do that. So Krishna creates our independence, our free will, um, within a context of our karma. That saying. What is it? Height is karma and weight is free will. No, the other way around. No, that's that's right. I got it right. You can't change your height, but you can change your weight, basically, at least in this lifetime. Um, so yeah, it can seem that Krishna's kind of playing Russian roulette with us. Well, some are saved and some, hang out here in the material world. But the reality is, and it's a very subtle point. What you're bringing up, obviously, is something that has been argued for millennia. And here we have 5 more minutes to solve the puzzle.
No,
But
no pressure, Prabhu. No
no
pressure.
pressure, right. But the simple, um, and I don't know if it's simple, but for me, what's helpful for me is the fact that it is Krishna's love for me that he gives me free will, and that I have choice, not unlimited choice. I can't just say, I really want to be a billionaire, and I walk outside the door and there's a stack of hundreds right to the ceiling. But I have my free will and I have my choice, and the ultimate choice ultimately is whether we want to have a loving relationship with Krishna or not. Krishna Buli Sejiv, Anadir Bahirmukh, that we have by giving us the free will, we've turned away from him, and we have the choice to turn again towards him. And everyone on this call has the experience of the challenges that it is to again turn towards him. And it's in that struggle that also is the is at we are where we are at in our level of bhakti is great happiness. Is great pleasure to try to be that that child who's learning to walk, and Krishna just waiting for us to be able to walk across the room towards him. So it's the way I've dealt with that question over 50 years now is 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 remembering Krishna's love and also his desire to serve his devotees. So those uh, um, yeah, and it's really bringing up your point is really important, because here we are, the personified Vedas that are not so much stressing bhakti, right? As Prabhupada kind of indicates in what we just read, there's some sprinkles
Yeah.
of bhakti in the Upanishads, and he quotes, right, the Gopala Tapani and the Brahma and the Svetasvatara Upanishad. But a lot of it is Gyan, and it's not so much. Even a lot of our acharyas, our focus is on the Bhagavatam, right? And what is it? Now I hope I can get this pretty much accurate. It was established pretty much by Sankaracharya that to be a proper Vedantic tradition, you had to have commentaries on the Upanishads, on the Shrutis, on the Vedanta, specifically the Brahma or the Vedanta Sutra, and I think it's the Agamas. And it was only really Baladev Vidyabhusan who did that in our tradition. We focus, we say yes, 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 but really our focus is on the Bhagavatam, and the Bhagavatam being the ultimate pramana for us. So the fact that these are personified Vedas and they're in the Bhagavatam is significant, and we're kind of seeing their bhakti tilt in the pages of this chapter of the Bhagavatam. Let's see, Mike writes, I had the same thoughts this morning, Jeffrey. That has been my rationalization on this. All I can do is be a good devotee as much as possible. That way I can lead by example. Thank you.
Cutting out, we can't hear him.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Hare Krishna.
I've been hearing you.
I can hear
Your
you.
sound is perfect, Prabhu. Your sound is fine.
Okay. All right. I think it's so. Jeffrey, we just solved the age-old question that philosophers have been thinking about for
No, Hare
eons.
Krishna, I really appreciate your point is very well taken, that let's take a step back and consider the speaker here and the position of the speaker. That's a very intelligent point to make, as well as this concept of free will as it relates to God's love. And even the example you give of the child taking its first steps is embedded in that, is that these steps are locomotion, and that the child is actually moving.
There you go. All right.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, everyone. I have to go give a class right now. Believe it or not. So, Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vraj Vihari, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Darshan time.
Jaya Radha Murlidhara Radha Jaya Gaura Chandra Gaura Chandra Gaura Chandra Jaya Gaura Chandra Jaya Gaura Chandra Jaya Gaura Chandra Jaya Gaura Jai Shri Shri Radha Murtala Gaurachandra Bhagavan Jai. Govindam Hari Krishna. Jai. Great awe and reverence. By His grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering, obtain the mercy of Krishna. Krishna, have my consciousness purified by the word emanating from the lotus mouth. Pass me to the mysteries of perfection that fills all the time. He opens my darkened eyes, fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From an ecstatic frame emanates, and my ignorance is destroyed. These wishes sing His kindness. Over the core of the Lord of Master, be merciful unto us. Spread along with free love. Take shelter of devotion. Prabhupada ki jai, jai, jai.
Thank you, Janitai Prabhu. Welcome to the Afterglow. Would anyone like to speak? Hare Krishna.
Madan Gopal Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
My obeisances, Jai Shri Prabhu. Thank you for that question about the play and our free will. And it got me thinking that it's actually a pretty deep consideration. That how can you reconcile it? And I was thinking that Krishna's play or Leela, his Leela itself is rooted in love from every direction. It's not exploitation. So if you start from that angle to understand, it's his Leela, which includes the creation, by the way. You know, when the Vedas say everything is his play, his Leela is not careless or cruel, but it's an expression of his divine, infinite bliss, his Ananda, and his infinite love, you know. So his play includes the free will of the jivas, you see. And our free will is part of his play. Free will isn't opposed to Krishna's control, it's enabled by it. You know, just like you have a director and the director makes the stage for the actors to perform. Sometimes you have like improv comedy troupes, they have a director, but the improv comedy can do, you know, within there's a limited scope, but they can make jokes on the fly. It's improv, right? So there's some capacity to choose. So our choices, whether they're good or bad, they're real and they carry real consequences. Those consequences are our karma, right? So even though the whole world is Krishna's Leela, we're not puppets, we're not lifeless toys, we're participants. He honors our agency. And out of his love, he lets us choose whether to serve or turn away. You know, that's part of his play overall. And another interesting thing about his play is that it also includes compassionate intervention on his part. You see, where he still allows us our freedom, but he stays with us as Paramatma. He sends his devotees in scriptures. He himself comes as avatars. So this is not a detached player, but a loving father. So the whole thing is his Leela. Now, the Leela only seems harsh when we are viewing it with material eyes, because if we're absorbed in material consciousness, then these things may appear random, arbitrary, unfair, whimsical, cruel. But the more we purify our consciousness, the more we begin to see that everything Krishna does is for the ultimate good of the soul. The soul can't be destroyed anyway. So even hardships are part of his play to awaken us. And when the Vedas say this, they speak from the platform of total surrender. It's like a parent's game. To the child, it feels real. The father knows the outcome. The father allows the child to search, to cry even, to call out. And when the child finds him, the joy is mutual on both sides. Both the father is happy and the child is happy. So it is play, but at the same time, they have real consequences and does allow for our agency. At the same time, everything is love all the way around. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu. So when we are allowed by Krishna to make choices that aren't good for us, that's the manifestation of his love?
Of course, of course. See, the thing is, that's the whole part of learning process. When we turn away from him, when a child throws a tantrum, the parent allows a certain degree of leeway. Okay, I'll allow it. But the parent will never allow the child to be destroyed. Our very nature, we cannot be destroyed, first of all. You know, that's one thing. But even the pretension of being destroyed, the parent can allow. For example, impersonal liberation is a pretending of being destroyed because you no longer exist with the individuality. But even that doesn't last forever. So the Lord has so much leeway in how much he allows us, even though he does it reluctantly, but that's all part of his play too. See, when the Lord sets up his play, it doesn't mean that there are things in there that he wants. Everything that happens is exactly the way he wants. It may seem that way because he's fully in control. But because he has these expansions who are us, we're really his mini expansions who have their own free will. So then it's an improv or it's like a jazz. You know, you have a jazz beat that's playing and the structure of the jazz song or the piece is the same. But within there's improvisation that are unique. And the bass guitarist will have a unique piece, and then the director can't control it. But at the same time, there's still the framework of the piece. So it's both are allowed.
Thank you, Madan Gopal Prabhu. Wonderful.
We have a question from Madan Gopal.
Go ahead, Adipusha Prabhu.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So this may not be so profound, but it's actually what I'm thinking. I love Prabhupada's books and the pictures. For practically speaking, the pictures help me so much, especially when in the beginning, and I still like relish them. So, you see a picture of Lord Nrsingadev, you see a picture of Raha, Dave, and you know the different people. But in this chapter, the personified Vedas, I have a difficulty perceiving that, thinking, what do they look like? Are they look like books talking? Do they have human form? Does anybody know? Has anybody seen any pictures of the personified Vedas? Hello?
Well, I mean, if you personify any object, then they have arms and legs and hands. What it means to personify. Like when we see personified Yamuna Devi, she's standing there as this lady, or
Oh
Ganga
yeah,
Devi, you
right.
know. So anytime the term personify itself means then you allow personal attributes. Um, so that's the idea. So I'd imagine the personified Vedas, because see, the Vedas, in Kali Yuga they manifest as books, but prior to Kali Yuga they manifest just as words that are spoken orally. So the book image itself, it's relative to the time frame. It's not, I mean, right now, if I were to think of Vedas, I think of a file in a Kindle or something, right? But in the past, it was, and maybe 50 years ago, it'll be like hardbound books that are printed by a company. And prior to that is handwritten scrolls or handwritten like leaves. So even time, how we visualize it changes with time, but the Vedas themselves are eternal. We can visualize them as the flapping of the wings of Garuda, and or the breath of Krishna, or the coming through his flute, and that's sometimes shown that as Vedas. So, but ultimately, it's the ideas within the Vedas that are personified. Yeah. So, but personified means the hands, feet, and so on. That's how I imagine it.
And maybe we can picture them as like sages dressed in, chadas and dhotis and long hair, something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just
It's
love
I've
the
it's
got
pictures.
I've got long hair.
There you go.
Yeah,
I
Bhima,
knew I was
I
fighting.
knew who you are, Bhima Prabhu. You are one of the Vedas personified
I am.
in Massachusetts. Yeah.
I'm the fool's Veda. Not many people read it, but it's the Veda specifically for fools. I find it. Uh, hold on for a second. I find it particularly interesting, Prabhu, and you can hopefully expand upon this. That prior, of course, to hardbound books and scrolls, there was the spoken oral tradition, and that means that when you speak a story, it's a spirit. It's the spirit of the story, and that story, because it is remembered by the sages. And I used to not scoff, but when I was in college and I was just a bhakta and just meeting Radhanath Maharaj and just opening up the books and being told, of course, that this was once memorized because I was studying literature at that time. So I wanted to find out source. Okay, because as a person studying literature, you understand that nothing's new under the sun. We repeat the truth over and over according to culture. So I was thinking, where's the source of these Vedas? And Maharaj would say this was orally tradition for thousands of years. I was like, how can anybody remember like this? And I'll tell you, it wasn't until I met the devotees, those who, and a lot of Indians, and I'm sure all nationalities have this in them, but especially Indian devotees, this unique ability to remember verbatim the words of the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, the verses themselves, convinced me, this definitely could have been an oral tradition as long as there were people to carry the spirit of them. And it's just so fascinating that from an oral tradition, it's such a subtle thing that it actually means the spirit of the Vedas. Um, I just wanted to know if you had anything to um, reveal in regards to that point. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, just a quick thing about that is it's mind-boggling right now because we can't imagine any one person can remember so much. But at the same time, we have examples even in the modern world, say in doctors, specialists in a particular field, they're considered world authority, even though there's books about that particular kind of, say, oncology, pediatric oncology of the foot, for example. It's a very specific thing, right? But there'll be a world authority in that who knows everything there is, plus he has his own creativity. So we see people like that in this world even today, that no amount of books can replace their level of knowledge in a particular area. So that concept's always been there. But you can imagine that prior to Kali Yuga, when pretty much everybody has amazing memories, and we get glimpses of it because every human has the capabilities just covered, and we don't have the ability to unlock it. Some people say you only use a small percentage of our capability, and that's a fact. So there's clues to that. Another clue is that if you look at the meter of our Vedic scriptures, including Bhagavatam, Gita, and everything else, the meter itself allows you to memorize so much information, you know. And if you look at translation and the original verse, the verse is so small, and the translation like takes half a page. So even Sanskrit is such a compact language. So it's compact. The meter allows you to memorize everything. So everything is a song. There's a rhythm to it, right? So songs are easy to remember. So even if you just look at it that structure-wise, kids can remember Bhagavad Gita. I know personally kids who know every one of the 700 verses. I know this like 9-year-old girl who lives right here in New York who knows all 700 verses, and she's not alone. There's like 12 others like her. So, and that's in Kali Yuga, So you can imagine the previous Yuga, it wasn't so difficult. And that's all they did right from very childhood. The oral tradition is passed in big schools and hundreds of thousands of students. So it's not that hard to imagine. Thank you, Prabhu. I see Min has her hand up for a while.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to share after what Adipusha said. The other day when we were hearing the verse where the Vedas were waking Vishnu in his slumber. And you're right, I've never seen images of the personified Vedas, but maybe for that particular reason, in my mind expanded in such a way that I'm imagining the personified Vedas gently waking up and by glorifying Vishnu. And it's just felt this immensity of the Vedas and the immensity of Vishnu and where he's lying. And to come back to remember that the essence of the Vedas speaks about the love of God. And I have kind of imagined that, waking up Vishnu by reciting this amazing beautiful poetry. It just created such an amazing image in my mind that I just never really saw anything like that. So it's just really cool.
Yeah, and it's an interesting exercise to visualize this, because are they male or female? That in itself is like, wait, why would they be male? I mean, Shruti is a female word, and the way that they call Shruti, So you can see they could be demigoddesses or goddesses, like, and obviously they'd be luminescent. Maybe their skin shimmers like gold, or the hue of fire, and the pure feminine, or they may take male form, symbolizing traditional reciter of the role of the Vedas is typically male form. But it could be either, or it could be, both. So it is hard to kind of, but at the same time, we can sort of imagine, it can a visual meditation on it.
Srila Prabhupada made a tremendous effort to direct the painters. Maybe you're not seeing it so much right now, but for example, the first pictures of Lord Chaitanya were very muscular, and Prabhupada said, no, he has soft features. That is a meat-eater body that you're making with all these muscles. He has a nice little belly. And then when he was talking about when Radharani was painting the painting of the super soul, remember that? She said, Prabhupada, it says he's seated in the heart. Is he sitting down or standing up? And Prabhupada looked down at his chest like this and said, he is standing. And so they painted a picture of Super Soul standing up. So he was helping us to see these different things in detail. And but I don't remember if he directed the personified Vedas. I like Madhavan Gopal's idea that if they're personified, then they would probably be human-like. But the pictures really help us. They really, really help us. We had what do you call it? Attention deficient kid about 8 years old in the guest program, and his mother said he can't pay attention to anything for more than just a few seconds. But when he started looking through the picture book, and then I brought all the Bhagavatams out and put them there where he was sitting on a blanket on the floor. And he sat there for 4 or 5 hours just going through the pictures in the Bhagavatam, which is Prabhupada's grace upon us, you know. So the pictures are helpful. Pictures worth 1,000 words, they say. Okay, all glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Adipusha, Prabhu, Madangopal, Prabhu, all the assembled devotees, all glories to you. Have a wonderful day. Come again tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam has all the answers. It has pictures. It can be personified and visualized and referred to. It's nice to see your bright faces.
Yeah, the other day at Serenity, they had a picture class, you know.
Mm.
But we have Bhagavad Gita
Were
class.
you the model?
No. Actually, you know the picture of Vivishwan is hearing from Krishna first spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Vivishwan.
Okay, sun god.
Vivishwan spoke it to Manu, and Manu to Ikshvaku, and it was passed down. So Nityodita was the person who was model when they were painting that. And you ever see that one where they say the devotee is not bewildered by the living or the dead, and there's a devotee walking along, and there's a guy laying on the ground. You ever see that picture in the
I'll
Bhagavad?
look it up right after this class.
That guy on the ground, I posed for that picture. The
All
dead
right.
guy.
I'm going
The
to
dead guy.
find that picture. I'll post it in the group.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Well, glory to Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Narottamnita Prabhu has his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in I think we're the Shankarshan is I forget exactly, but the thousand-headed snake. Um, so he's a manifestation of Lord Balaram, and there's always glorifying Krishna, and despite all the different heads that are glorifying Krishna, it's not enough. So I just wanted to say my dandavas to all of you that we can all continue to glorify Krishna and act as what is the mouse, by chanting and doing all the service that we're doing. I'm just really happy to see so many devotees here. So dandavas. I just wanted to add that in as a little cherry on top. Hare Krishna.
how wonderful is Krishna. Well, glory to Prabhupada.
Thank you. Karen has her hand up. Karen is our finisher. Oops.
Oh, there. Sorry. Am I here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Hare Krishna. I just wanted, it's just what Adi was just saying about how Prabhupada said to how the Chaitanya should look, all that stuff. I was just wondering about how an aspiring devotee might be able to do that service. I'm a classically trained sculptor and painter, and I did manage to paint something for the kids had a puppet show for the Narasimha Chaturdashi, so I painted this Narasimha deity, and I don't really know what I'm doing. I kept asking the person that I sent her a picture, and she's like, needs more jewelry or whatever, these kinds of things. But where can you find like a resource of what is required for a proper deity painting or service or offering in that way? So,
Prabhupada did talk about this.
and how do I find, like, what is it, a specific
There are disciples of Srila Prabhupada who actually give, even today, painting courses, and they're instructed by Prabhupada in very fine details. A lot of those instructions were not on record, for example, but because these devotees were instructed in so much detail by Prabhupada, they're living repositories of his desires and his directions. And because they're still offering classes, there's one devotee called Dhriti Devi Dasi who actually offers classes, and she has like sessions and seminars on art for devotees. So if you're looking for modern day resource, you can look her up. It's Dhriti Devi Dasi, and there's others as well.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Karen. So no muscles for devotees and use real devotees for models. And then, yeah, the Purusha was doubtful about that. But anyway, the resources are there, Karen.
Yeah.
Anandi is unmuted.
Yes, I just wanted to say that, let's also consider the power of Matrika Shakti, the power of letters, the power of language. Because without language and without the power of letters, we would just experience pure consciousness. I mean, until your mother tells you, oh, you're a boy, your name is Ananda Bihari Prabhu, how would you know, you don't have a concept of that, oh, this is the tree. I mean, and so I'm struggling with this concept of free will, this concept of how Maya veils our consciousness. I just wanted to put it out there, that's all.
Thank you, Anandi. When we struggle together, it's easy. Sometimes it may seem as though we don't have free will because it's so hard, but it's so easy to make the right choices when you are surrounded by the devotees, when you're engaged in service in the association of the devotees. Then it's very easy to make the right choices for Srila Prabhupada and for Krishna. But when we are alone, somewhere drowning in our own mind, sometimes it may be challenging. So therefore, we should throw ourselves in the association of Srila Prabhupada and his devotees and personified Vedas like you were doing now, Anandi, by attending this class. This is a personified Veda also in some way.
Yeah.
Okay, Karen, please, where are our reciters of the mantra? Isaiah is our professional reciter of the mantra.
Wait up. Wait.
Long hair, he's got long hair. Mhm.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Isaiah, Annabelle, Karen, everyone on this call. We love you. We need you. Hare Krishna. Madan Gopal, thank you so much for answering questions so nicely.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.